the capital markets have actually had a rough ride this year. And then you have COVID-19 as well, which has come in, and the outbreak has actually knocked off investor wealth globally. Now, the pandemic, the nationwide knockdown, imposed the curbs to the spread. Now, all of this actually has had a huge impact on the economy. What is your view on this? Because clearly, one of the key events that we were watching out for was with regards to where takeover of Yes Bank goes. And after this, you have Corona, which has come in to break the back.
Yeah, that is true. The difference between what happened at say in Yes Bank and the current situation is clearly uh, this is an act of God or act of nature, which is very different from the way Yes Bank issue cropped up, which was essentially to do with capital requirements not being met or not being raised, and therefore the related pressures when that bank had to be taken over by larger groups like SBI. Now this COVID is not an India specific event. It's a global event, and each country will have to address it in the way they best can. So from our side, as we look at things, it looks like there will be at least a 60-day of lockdown, which essentially means that close to 16% of GDP. If rupees 100 was the GDP for the year, that roughly works out to around 8 per month, and for 2 months it's like 16 rupees. And you assume that some of that 16 rupees it continues to be active because essential goods are allowed to be transported, sold. So net, based on that, if you assume 50% of that 16 rupees is affected, so you are sort of looking at an 8% gap on the GDP. Right now, that needs to be filled in. Now, India doesn't have the financial muscle to fill in that gap.
Right.
Unlike some of the Western countries which have announced fiscal deficits, which is like 10% of or 12% of their GDP, we have to live with a smaller amount, maybe or 3 or 4%. They have announced till now just about 1%, but I'm presuming that going forward, they will announce a few more, which will bring that fiscal deficit higher up. Now that's to do just to fill in the gap, but there are a lot of other issues which will also take place. For instance, we need to clearly watch out how COVID is being managed in India. Based on the number of tests, it looks like we don't have such a huge issue right now, but really this is a crucial week for us to look at the data and see the spread of that. The problem arose when what was essentially an urban problem looked like it will go to rural India as the migration of laborers happened. So I'm just hoping that it doesn't spread out so much in rural India. But if it does, then of course the impact will be a little larger. So assuming it doesn't, and then we can expect the laborers to come back to work maybe in around 3-4 months time. And so the first 2 quarters will be a washout, June quarter and September quarter. Maybe by December and then March, things will slowly start to improve.
But Mr. Subramaniam, are you of the thought that it's better to have a washout right now in the first half of the year versus the second half? Because still, if you look at corporate earnings as well, majority of the turnover or majority of the top line actually comes in the second half. So the lockdown now is better rather than having a relapse at that point in time when your majority revenue flows in.
Yeah, that is in some sense, yes. But then you have to also look at it not just from the corporate India point of view. You have to look at what impacts our agriculture, what impacts the larger population in rest of the country. We can't really assume that just because the earnings growth will be higher and the festive season will be there, that we are thankful that the COVID happened now. Because the dislocations can be in many places. Even if the migrants come back, you have to look at how do the small companies face this issue. Do they have the finances? How do services industry and restaurants and hotels in urban cities get impacted? So in some sense, maybe what you are saying is true that it didn't happen in the second half. But I think the linkages will be so high between each sector that it doesn't matter in which quarter this COVID would have come, it would still have a serious impact on many things. Bear in mind, it's less to do with statistics, more to do also with psyche, right? If as you get out of the COVID-19, I don't know whether consumers will be in a great mood to spend. You may want to conserve, you may still fear that it may, because till the vaccination is ready, everybody is going to be a little more alert that things can turn bad again. So you will be cautious. So it doesn't matter when it came, it definitely will have an impact on a couple of quarters.
Correct. So, yes, investors, yes, probably consumers will be cautious. But what's the sense if you have to correlate this to the markets? Do you think we're actually trying to find a balance between hope and fear right now? And if yes, I mean, do you think people and investors who are sitting on a pile of cash, this could be a good time to then get into the markets and invest?
Yeah, if you have a longer term horizon, and if you just look at the data and assuming that 2 months of lockdown happen now, most likely this year's GDP will be flattish to negative. So there's no point in looking at this year's GDP. And if you have the patience and the ability to withstand the volatility and wait for a longer period for the earnings to come back, then I think it could be a good time to start investing. Now, of course, the markets reacted in March because a lot of FPI is sold out, and FPI is sold out throughout the globe because it's not just an Indian phenomenon. They are always looking at the relative performance of each market. So we had the FPI selling out, but the domestic flows were still quite strong. Maybe this month and the next month will be critical to see whether the domestic flows will continue as it is, or will they also shy away from investing. But those who have cash, I think, and have the ability to withstand volatility, it could be a good opportunity to definitely look at investing.
Right. But let me play devil's advocate here. Because if you see markets, we've seen a fall of almost around 38% on an average from mid-Jan highs that we saw on Nifty. Still, from March lows, we've bounced back right now to almost 22%. Now, if you have to correlate this to what happened in 2008 as well, there were 4 distinct rallies that we actually witnessed, all ranged between 12 to 25%, where the overall mood of the market was still completely bear. Now, if you have to correlate this, do you think there is that some bit of cautiousness that still prevails?
Yeah, because the two events I would say are really different. In the global financial crisis, it was more to do with only the financial sector, and it was also more of a Western issue. In terms of economic impact, clearly the GFC had some impact, but it was not as spread out as it will be in this case of COVID-19. So you have to look at both the markets very differently. While stock prices may have reacted in a certain way and bounced back in a certain way, but the responses in 2008 would be very different from the responses you would face right now. Because in 2008, it was really the poor and the migrant laborers and the lower middle class and the large number of middle class were less impacted, except those who are really invested in the stock markets. This time, that is not the case. You have question on employability, you have question of whether you will retain your jobs. The migrant laborers and the daily laborers are not able to get their wages. So I'm saying the scene is very, very different. You have to see this separately, not what happened in 2008. Yes, the bounce back was good, but will it sustain? It all depends on the earnings outcome. If the earnings outcome is going to be very weak, it is likely that the markets from here on also may correct. And definitely certain consumption areas will definitely be impacted. So if you look at most of what the economists are saying, and anecdotally also if you talk to companies, maybe IT and TMT may be less impacted, but maybe a two-wheeler company may be more impacted. So we have to judge what's happening in individual stocks, individual sectors, and then accordingly invest.
So are you expecting more pain for the markets over the next 3 months? Or do you think, at least if you have to look at calendar year 2020, the kind of slump that we saw between that Jan-Feb period was the worst that we could have seen, and there is no major downside left now?
No, but we cannot really say that because, as I said, between Jan and now, the COVID spread, the number of testing, everything was, what do you call, not fully blown out.
Hmm.
We have to see the data now as more and more testing is being done, how widespread it is, and therefore what could possibly be the reaction of the government. We
Hmm.
are all assuming that right now the lockdown is more or less for 40 days, and maybe it will add another 20 days, so around 60 days of lockdown is what mentally we are all thinking about. But if the spread is larger, if the spread also happens to be in rural India, then the lockdown will could be larger than 60 days. Then all your calculation will again have to be redone. So net, I'm saying that just because the market bounced back and we may not see a downside, I think that's being very hopeful. It is possible that it may react, and particularly consumption-related stories, you
Hmm.
may see some correction over there.
Okay. So is this the time, and are you using this as an opportunity to actually reshuffle your portfolio? Probably look at companies that can sustain this kind of slowdown in the economy.
Yes, so because as a portfolio manager, for the first job is to see the kind of companies which you invest in, that they
Hmm.
can last this downturn, and therefore you don't want to have companies which have high leverage. You want to own companies which have a great balance sheet, which have a good
Hmm.
management, has a lot of cash, and that's the first step you would take. Then of course you will. Then of course the entire period of March, the
Hmm.
good thing was there was some very high quality companies also which collapsed. So it sort of allowed us to reshuffle the portfolio. What was very expensive, say in 2018, 19, or 2017, suddenly became reasonable based on certain long-term valuation. So you also start to reshuffle the portfolio towards some high-quality names.
Right. I'm going to interrupt over here. We are talking about valuation somewhere. In this kind of a market scenario, Mr. Subramaniam, how should one actually look at valuations? Because nothing really holds true. I mean, there is a lot of confusion amongst retail investors if you have to look at from a valuation perspective. If you could highlight for us, what are the key valuation parameters that you are looking at in these times?
So, in certain companies, you could also look at the asset base. There are. Let's look at, let's say, just broadly. I'll brush. If you look at, say, the PSU companies, many of them are quoting at less than the asset base which they own, and at a significant discount. So maybe one rationale could be that you also look at the asset base of every company. Then apart from earnings, you could also look at price to book as a valuation metrics. You are right that for the next 1 year, the earnings will be anywhere. It will be all over the place. Very difficult to make a judgment. But somewhere you will have to look beyond the
Hmm.
1 year time frame and assume that assume that things will come back to some rationality next year. Then what could be the kind of P ratio or price to book which you could give? And there are certain long-term trends available. All you require is a faith that things will improve and the patience to stay invested.
Right. So overall, right now, what would you actually recommend retail investors? Because the ones who are cautious are really scared of deploying their cash. And the ones who are already invested actually have no opportunity because the kind of wipe off that they've seen in their wealth, I mean, they still need to hold on. But if there is a retail investor who has some amount of money at this current point in time, what would your advice be?
See, a lot will depend on your risk appetite. A lot will also depend on your time horizon and goals. Those who have short-term goals, I think one should still avoid getting into equities. If your goals are longer term,
Hmm.
then I think it is still what do you call, great price levels at which you could invest, because as we see over a long period of time, they will tend to do well. But
Correct.
brace yourself up for some high volatility. The second I would also suggest is look at a lot of alternatives available within the space itself. For instance, if your risk appetite is low, maybe you shouldn't go into completely equity product, but you could look at something like a multi-asset product, something like a more balanced. I'm not saying the balanced fund which the mutual fund industry has, which tends to be skewed towards equity, but there are some products out there, for instance, even from Quantum, which is truly a balanced fund. In the sense, there is no limit as to the kind of equities we could have.
Hmm.
So in the multi-asset fund, which is also a balanced fund, it's a combination of debt, equity, and gold.
Correct.
So and if you look at the returns, it is lower than equity, but the risk is also a lot lower, and the returns are pretty good. So you as an investor, I think it's a good time to invest. If your ability to withstand volatility is high, then go ahead and be invested in equities. If not, look at these other products.
Right. But how is the mood amongst your clients right now, especially if you have to look at equities as an asset class?
So touch wood last month was actually good, and probably that the industry itself showed it. We also had a lot of our clients adding more money. Some of them calling us up and asking for our views. So net we saw a positive inflow, but we have also been encouraging our investors to also look at the variety of products, because at the end of the day, if you don't want to take too much risk, then apart from equity, there are some other wonderful products which give you better returns, like than, let's say, a bank fixed deposit, a better return than liquid fund, but at the same time, it is not hugely risky. So we have been encouraging our clients to look at a multi-asset fund, to look at fund of funds, and to also look at gold.
Okay. And what's the sense that you have, especially on the SIP book? Do you think there could be an impact on the back of COVID-19 on that?
Yeah, so first month there was no impact, but as you know that there are questions on now job
Mm.
creation, job losses. So people may want to conserve some cash. So you may see some decline coming in. On the other hand, if interest rates continue to go down and people who have been saving, and if they find that the bank deposits does not give them adequate returns, you may find a good amount of that money coming into the mutual funds. Right? So on a per individual basis, it's possible that some people may reduce, but I think more number of people may also look at the equity segment, the balanced segment, than just remaining invested with the bank. Because as interest rates go down, fixed deposit rates also will go down,
Go down,
and
correct.
these investors will definitely look at the mutual fund space for an alternative. So net, you may find actually a higher flows coming in.
So do you suggest that SIPs in equity mutual funds probably could be the best instrument, say, if you have to look at long-term wealth creation, and lump sum investments could be made on the back of favorable valuations via SIPs?
Yes, that would be the most ideal situation, that you have a discipline of investing every month. So it's a sort of saving which keeps on accumulating, and then there are these
Mm.
events which allow you to add a lump sum. Like valuations become suddenly very attractive, then you should add a larger amount. But a combination of SIP plus lump sum is always the
Mm.
best outcome.
Okay. Overall, apart from this, right now we've said that yes, you are looking to rejig your portfolio as well. Uh, what is your investment strategy in this recent sell-off from here on?
So we have been value investors. If you look at Quantum Long-Term Equity Value Fund, for us it's a liquidity of a stock plus the valuations is what make us invest in a particular stock. So that strategy has not changed. The
Okay.
only thing which has happened right now is the fund managers took a very quick analysis of which are the companies which can last this downturn. So therefore, any leveraged
Mhm.
companies do we have? And we did not have much leveraged companies. Most of our companies are cash rich, and there are a couple of companies which have leverage, but they are probably founded by groups which have the ability to fund them. So we don't have to really worry about those kind of companies. So first thing is to test the balance sheet strength. Then what they did was, as I said, as high quality names started coming in at reasonable valuations. Now valuations, as you know, is based on certain future outcome. Now we don't know the
Mm.
future outcome, how it will play out, but taking certain calls, like for instance, 2021 will be a washout in GDP, and 2022 there will be some bounce back. Then what could be the kind of valuations which will look attractive? Based on those parameters, we found names in the IT space, in the banking space, even in the engineering space, and that's what the fund managers did in terms of rejigging the portfolio and keeping it future ready.
Right. And overall, if you have to look at individual sectors as well, which are the sectors where you're overweight right now?
So before the COVID event happened, we were overweight actually in consumer discretionary. But as we have been relooking at rejigging, we will probably reduce that. And the sectors which could add weight could be in IT. We may also add weight in the engineering space where we saw some good stocks being
Mm-hmm.
corrected. So consumer names will probably, the names could be there, but the weights could change.
Right. And what's the impact you're seeing, especially on the banking sector? Do you think there is a major potential to create fresh NPAs for the financial names? And that's something which is really going to hurt?
Yes, that is possible, and not possible. It is probably looks like it will definitely happen. So you need to look at companies which have the capital to withstand that, and which have generally been good in their risk management systems.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no doubt. So unlike the what do you call the bulky infrastructure related NPAs which we had in the past, this time it could be relating to retail. It could be relating to the SME segment. So we may not find the lumpy accounts, but we will definitely see higher NPAs. So we have to even taking into account the moratorium which the government had announced, RBI had announced. We still look at individual companies, see their ability, whether they have the capital to withstand that kind of shocks, and then take a call.
Right. In fact, the quantum of job losses also that are expected in many industries, that's something which could actually impact because firms are losing revenues. So there is a possibility of firms and individuals which could likely default on loan repayments. So that's something which could be impacting banks as well. But what's the sense that you're picking up even for the mid cap and the small cap space? Because that's been a space which has been seen constant selling. There has been no relief or respite. Do you think there are green shoots and opportunities coming in the broader markets as well, or would you only advise at this current point in time to stick with the blue chips?
Yeah, so not necessarily blue chips, but see, at Quantum we have always aired our views that small cap. So you as an investor need to have a proportion. You can't have larger portion of your money in small caps. You should have a larger portion. If your risk appetite is reasonable and not very high, you should have larger proportion in large cap, and then reduced mid cap and a very, very small amount in small cap. So first caveat, always remember that you need to have a portfolio which allows you to have a larger amount in large cap and a very small amount in small cap, so that you don't get shocked by these kind of events. Small cap for us was always a problem area because there are a number of headwinds which a small company faces. Sometimes it could be technology, sometimes it could be people, sometimes it could be finances. So therefore, unless you are extremely smart and nimble, you should not really be in the small cap space. It's really for sophisticated investors who understand things very well and who have the ability to withstand shocks. For a retail investor, we have always suggested be in the mid cap to large cap. At Quantum, we have always focused on liquidity of a stock. The stock has to be very liquid. So therefore, when we say liquid, it has to trade at least $1 million a day. So therefore, by that nature, our universe tends to be among the large capish and also certain mid-sized companies which are again larger within the mid-cap space. And so there we find comfort because there you can get in and get out at a reasonable time frame, and the quality is also better. In small cap, one company may be good, but three companies may be bad. So unless you are a real expert, I would always suggest that small cap is an area which you should not enter. You as a retail investor with reasonable risk appetite should not enter.
Right. And overall, Mr. Subramaniam, I'll just quickly take you through with the RBI press conference as well, where Governor Shaktikanta Das has actually come out and just said that the measures that have been announced by the RBI are in the form of maintaining liquidity in the system, facilitating and incentivizing the bank credit flows, easing the financial stress, and enabling the formal working of the markets. Now, this is just a probably roundup and a summation that he's come and given out. But do you think something major is required to be done by the RBI as well? And what do you think it could be?
Now, from RBI's perspective, I actually don't see anything major to be announced, because the RBI's role is essentially to see that there is enough liquidity available at a reasonable price. So whatever they do, it will be relating to interest rates and liquidity, and to ensure that the both the banking as well as NBFCs suddenly don't have a liquidity crunch. So, but what I would expect is more from the government side, where the fiscal deficit is the government takes the risk of increasing the fiscal deficit. So, as I gave you a very rough calculation, if the impact on GDP is likely to be around 8%, and we have announced fiscal deficit which is closer to just about 1%, then there is a large gap which needs to be filled. And that is where I would want to focus on and try and see what the government can do to sort of keep the momentum on in the economy.
Right. But overall, right now, do you think, the major crux right now with the RBI intervening also was that firstly, they had the TLTRO option of almost around 25,000 crores, which is apparently to be conducted today. Now, do you think with the measures that have been taken, the redemption pressure that the mutual funds were, actually facing has eased out?
See, I don't actually on the redemption pressure. If you are talking about the liquid fund space, the better manager would be to speak to my fixed income manager rather than me. But what I would say is it's less to do with RBI. It's more to do with what each individual company is facing in terms of what kind of liquidity they need in their business. That will decide whether they want to redeem or not want to redeem. RBI's job is just to ensure that if there is a redemption pressure, then there is liquidity available. If a bank needs a fund, then there is liquidity available. If an NBFC needs funds, then the banks have the ability to fund them. That's what the RBI's role would be in this entire scenario. And therefore, they will play around with rates, or rather, they would use tools to adjust the rates. They would use tools to adjust the long-term buying or the short-term buying. But essentially everything to ensure that the system is well oiled. But to keep the momentum of GDP growth going on, what we require is not an RBI action, but more to do.
Right. So, correct. So, very lastly, for the investors, 2 to 3 sectors that you would advise to buy at this current point in time, and two sectors which you would completely avoid.
See, I will not avoid any sector, nor will I completely go into one sector, because for us, at the end of the day, you have to make an estimate on the valuations, right? So, if a sector which, let's say all of us agree that consumption is going to go down and there is a sell-off, but at a certain valuation, it will start to look attractive. So, you have to take that call of going into that sector once the valuation becomes attractive. Very macro basis, as of now, looks like consumption will be hit. So therefore, so not consumer staples, but consumer discretionary. One needs to be a little cautious. But again, at a certain price, at a certain assumption on the long-term growth, the price may be attractive for you to get into. So don't avoid any sectors, but be extra vigilant when you invest. If you plan to invest in consumer discretionary, be extra vigilant. Be extra careful what's the assumption you are making.
So we'll start taking questions. The first question coming in, Mr. Subramaniam, is that when there is no production in most companies and no sales, the earnings of Nifty companies are actually supposed to go down significantly. So if you have to take this into consideration, what's your estimate of Nifty earnings and the Nifty PE?
So the Nifty earnings, I think probably for this year will be flattish to even it could be slightly negative based on the assumption which we are making right now, which is that 60-day lockdown will happen. The first 2 quarters will be a washout on the GDP and things will slowly revive from the last quarter. So based on those estimates, I think this year's numbers will be flat to even negative. And next year we are seeing some rebound. But right now we are being conservative. We estimate around a 4.5% kind of rebound next year. But it's a fluid situation. We will need to look at that. So if that being the earnings for FY22, and you look at the longer term average. So I generally look at the Sensex. If you look at the long term average of 17 times or 18 times, then that's the number one could look at. But that's on the Sensex. But really, you have to break it down into sectors, right? If you look at certain sectors, the way they have been beaten down has been quite significant. So if some of them, if you are able to buy based on the assumption that growth will come back in FY22, then there is a higher potential of earning that extra return, because you have taken the risk of buying into a segment which has been completely beaten down now.
Right. And another question coming in is especially in terms of where monsoons go. In fact, Shaktikanta Das also actually said right now that with regards to pre-monsoon kharif sowing, that has been pretty aggressive. Paddy, in fact, I think if I'm not mistaken, is up around 35 to 37% in April versus last year. And IMD has forecasted a normal southwest monsoon wherein rainfall expected at 100% of LTA, which is the long-term average. Now, to support this as well, the question that we're getting is that are the markets also assuming that we will then have a normal monsoon this year?
I think the general talk, when you talk to companies which deal with rural India, it seems to suggest that till now rural India is protected and the harvest will go on and the monsoon will be normal. So that's the general assumption. So I would say that the market seems to be pricing in that. But the difference is really the impact of this COVID in rural India. As I said, when we began last month, it was a very urban phenomenon till you started seeing these migrant laborers going back. So if the spread becomes higher in rural India, and therefore not the harvesting, but the markets get impacted. Let's say a mandi market, you are not able to function. The mandi market had to be closed down. Then the trading will definitely take a hit. Any agricultural produce also require a very vibrant trading segment for the farmers to realize their income. So if that gets impacted, then definitely rural India also will see a certain impact from its ability to earn income, and therefore that will get reflected in the stock prices.
Right. All right, Mr. Subramaniam, pleasure speaking to you, and thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank
we
you.
will come back to you as well once further developments happen across COVID and how we're able to deal with it. Thank you for joining
so much. And sorry for that battery. I didn't notice.